Welcome back, DCCCD Triple D boys. How y'all doing today? It's your man, Professor Manzi, and this is the radio show, Philosophy Club radio show, Radio Hour. Think about it. You already know what's going on. It's the new team around here. Yeah. New management. New Manzi-ment.
Stop.
I'll try to. Okay, welcome back, guys. This is the Philosophy Club radio show. Quickly, you are listening to KDX Web Radio, broadcast live from Richland College in Dallas, Texas. We are the voice of Richland College. Views expressed on this show are my own, our own, unless otherwise stated, and do not reflect the opinion of KDX Web Radio, Richland College, or the Triple DCCCD. How's it going, guys?
It's popping. You already know what I'm saying?
Hey,
it's
man.
it's popping. You know what's good. It's like
That's beautiful.
you know, it's like, you know.
Very articulate. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, we could start. Well, usual people back. We've seen both of these beautiful young men. I love y'all. We've seen y'all before, but we can start with introductions when we can start from the far left corner.
All right. You already know who it is. It's your boy Willard Oliver Smith,
That's beautiful.
AKA. That's all I got.
The end.
Vegeta.
AKA Vegeta. Nice. I love it.
Well, I'm just Brian. Yeah.
Just Brian?
Just Brian. Yeah.
That's beautiful. I feel that. As you know, my name is Professor Manzi. I've been going through some cosmetic changes, and
You got suntan?
yeah, I got a suntan, got a haircut. I'm just midlife crisis status. I'm trying to be a new person, but hopefully it works out. I'm a 19-year-old boy now, and the topic for today is something related to a movie showing that we recently had. We recently showed a movie called Melancholia,
Nice.
which goes about, the plot is about a planet. So there's, on planet Earth, there is a planet going to fly by planet Earth, and people are gathering around to watch a planet go. It's supposed to be this astronomical event that's supposed to be beautiful, like something like the Northern Lights or a comet flying by. But then it turns out that the planet is not going to fly by Earth. The planet is actually going to crash into Earth. And the characters that we know experience these things, they know these things, and it's basically just watching them realize that the world is about to end, that their passions, what they want, their fears, their desires, ultimately mean nothing because everything they know will be destroyed at the end of the movie. And we watch them cope with this realization. And this kind of relates to the topic that we have today, which is nihilism. Nihilism is defined as, loosely by me, it's defined as a lack of moral principles or a lack of religious values where everything, your existence basically has no guides. It's basically for no reason. There's no reason for you to be alive. There's no reason for you to desire things. I don't know if that's the proper definition, and I don't know if anyone wants to critique my definition or add anything to it. Pulling out the phone, Google.
Yes, we're gonna Google nihilism right now.
Google is your friend.
live.
Google is your friend.
Brian got it. Anyway, I don't necessarily think
By
that.
definition, nihilism is the philosophical doctrine that suggests that a lack of belief in one or more reputably meaningful aspects of life. So it basically means that you believe that nothing matters at all. Your life, everything you care about, everything you don't like, your religious beliefs mean absolutely nothing on the mere fact that you're just going to die one day and then everyone will eventually forget about you.
And you can already see based on the definition how that is a hard thing to cope with. But I was actually thinking about this recently. The idea that one day you can legitimately open up your calendar on your app and you can scroll down to a certain year. Scroll down to year 3000. On this year will happen. This time will come. And in this time, no one you know will be alive. Nothing that you did on 11/29/2017 will be remembered. Nothing you did on 11/30/2017 will be remembered.
The internet is forever.
All right, yeah, totally.
No,
But yeah,
here's the thing, though. Okay, some people are able to completely break down that inevitable fact that what you're thinking will mean nothing. We have historical figures, we have artistic figures, we have celebrities who have managed to pass break through the
Test of
time.
the test of time.
Like we even study philosophers from ancient Greeks, and that's like what hundreds centuries ago. Well, we still talk about him. We still know he exists because some people believe that you are officially dead when everybody forgets about you. That's like your second death.
When your existence is forgotten.
Or your first death as well, literally dying.
Yeah, and this relates to something we talked about last week with Friedrich Nietzsche. I think a lot of people have a misconception with nihilism related to Friedrich Nietzsche. They assume that Friedrich Nietzsche is a nihilist, or they assume that Friedrich Nietzsche promotes nihilism. And I was actually in one of the other meetings for another club on campus, and it was funny because I was talking to one of the people, and they were talking about Friedrich Nietzsche, and they said, I don't really like Friedrich Nietzsche. The guy's a kind of a hack or a whack. That they think that he promotes nihilism, that he promotes kind of loosely moving through life, that nothing matters, nothing, there's no guide to life, so nothing matters. And I think that what Friedrich Nietzsche really promotes is that while nothing inherently matters in the world, it gives us the power to bestow what we value into the world. Each person their own. Each person can say that I don't value this, but I value this instead. I don't value rock climbing, but I value cooking instead. And then they live their lives accordingly to how they view it. And I think that is the true form of Nietzsche's philosophy instead of just purely nihilism.
No, that sounds, what you just described sounds like, I'll be honest with you right now, I don't know too much about Nietzsche. I just only know a few of his famous quotes, but that's about it. So. But what you describe sounds a little bit similar to something that Albert Camus believes.
Albert, I know that guy. He's nice.
Yeah, for those of you in the audience who aren't too familiar with him,
philosopher.
He wrote a piece called The Myth of Sisyphus, where he kind of has like the story of Sisyphus as like the foundation for his philosophy. Sisyphus, he was doomed to push a boulder up a hill, but as he was about to reach the top, it will roll down, and he does that
over and over and over eternity.
And Albert Camus says that we should basically
imagine Sisyphus happy.
Because even though life is absurd, you shouldn't, like meaningless, you shouldn't let it stop you from being able to enjoy life.
Yeah. So the quote is, one must try to imagine Sisyphus happy. And you can see, I actually watched a video on this pretty recently. You can see how you can relate the lives that we live to Sisyphus' story. The weekdays, Monday through Friday, when you're going to work, enduring these things could be you pushing the rock up the hill. And then on the weekends is when you get to relax, but the rock falls back down the hill. And then it just keeps repeating. And you can see how this can become a tedious lifestyle, that it's something hard to persevere. But I think that what Albert Camus says is that this is life. And just because life is struggling and life is repetitive does not mean that it is terrible. You don't have to hate your life just because it's continuous. You don't have to hate your life just because it's tedious. But this is the action that you have to endure if you're going to live a life. I don't know if I'm getting him completely correct, but that's what I took away from him.
Yeah, I get you. I feel like being a nihilist nowadays is... Okay, let me rephrase that. When people think nihilism, as you mentioned, they just simply think life is meaningless, nothing matters, so why even bother, right? I feel like the problem with that kind of thinking that it is near impossible to completely live your life in that sort of way. Yeah.
Explain yourself.
Okay, so so unless you're an absolute sociopath, there are stuff that you
don't ever talk about me like that. No, I'm kidding.
There are values you have, there's stuff you care about, whether it be a religion, a hobby, your passion, or even your projects, right? And even with all this stuff, right, you can still say, life is meaningless, nothing matters, I'm going to die in the end anyways, right? And we can even see that manifest itself with the way humor is nowadays. We hear people, and I'm 100% guilty of this, by the way. We always hear people talk about, oh, I want to die, please kill me, I'm going to hang myself, life is suffering, As much as we joke about that, right, we still can't fully grasp the concept of when I die, I'm going to leave all of this behind. And that scares people. Even some of the most hardcore nihilistic wannabe people can feel this. Like, let me recount you something that happened. So I was taking public transportation, right? Something called DART.
Yeah.
You may have heard of it.
Beautiful.
Ancient.
Right? Ancient. I was taking the train, I was listening to music, I was relaxing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then, out of nowhere, this crazy homeless guy is holding a knife and is threatening people.
Don't ever talk about Manti like that again. All right, hold on, let me open the door for him.
Okay.
Goodness gracious.
We just got a new student showed up today.
What's your name, little young man?
I'm Professor Manti. Nice to meet you.
Oh, pleasure.
Nice to meet you.
Pleasure. Am I on?
Yeah, you're on. I think.
My name is Uche.
Okay, nice.
Goodness gracious.
So the topic for today is nihilism. Brian's telling us a little story about it on the DART train. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay, so to kind of, keep you up, to catch you up to speed, Professor.
Yes.
Uche, is that talked about how it's kind of how it's near impossible to be done. Not like when people think nihilism, they think life is meaningless, nothing matters. Why even bother? You're gonna die in the end anyways, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the problem is, a lot of people have some things that they value, even if they don't realize it, right? Whether
Check.
it be their projects, their religion, their friends, their family, their hobbies, things like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And for some people, like, let me rephrase that. Even though they might try to uphold this nihilistic viewpoint of life, they can't deny that even if they believe that life is meaningless, those things have meaning to them. And once they die, they have to leave all of that behind, and that is terrifying for some people. As you know, I joke about dying and suicide all the time, and a lot of my philosophy is very cynical and existential and nihilistic. But then I had this encounter in the train.
Yeah.
I was relaxing, listening to music, and homeless guy came out of nowhere with a knife and is threatening people, right?
Oh, wow.
I am absolutely terrified. Now, I'm not screaming or anything. I'm just kind of frozen, realizing someone might get hurt today. Someone might die today, right? So after being frozen for a couple of seconds, I kind of walked to the other end of the train trying to talk to the train conductor, right?
Mm-hmm.
And everyone's terrified, and I feel very claustrophobic because the train's a very tight space. And eventually, the train stopped. The police came. They arrested the guy. No one got hurt. Thank God, right?
Mm-hmm.
And and when I'm on my way to school, I'm thinking I could have died today. I could have died today, and then people in my English and philosophy class will be thinking, "Where is Brian? Why is he not here?" And then the next class period will be like, "He's still not here. What's going on?" I could have died that day. I could have left all of my values and all the people who value me for some reason behind.
Mm-hmm.
It really got me thinking. I know that life is meaningless. I know that my life inherently has no value in the large scope of things, and that 100 years from now, all my accomplishments and all my achievements will be nothing. But still, the fact that this is your one life, the fact that this is the only thing that it makes you question things.
Mm-hmm. It leads you. So even if you realize that these things won't mean anything later on, you still have this sentimental attachment to them because you know that life will continue to go on if you had died that day, and that it's a hard thing to even grasp. But I can see how you connect this. There's even the hardest nihilistic people are scared of death. Even the hardest nihilistic people have things that they attach themselves to, have things that are motivating them through life, even if they claim that all things are meaningless.
Oh, yeah, I get you.
Uh-huh.
I know it starts on a nihilist. I know he's an existentialist, and the fact that he was married to another existentialist, and the fact that he married her means that he clearly values her in some
It's
way.
the dance I do every
but
time.
the way he talks about his philosophy, it sounds like he's so cold and so rigid. So even Sartre has feelings, guys. Okay, even Sartre has loved ones. Like I can only imagine the divorce. Like was Sartre just like, I don't value you anymore.
Sartre proposed to Beauvoir on a number of occasions. Beauvoir just always said no.
What?
Yeah.
Really?
Yep. So there you have it. It's not what you would think, I suppose. I'll say this too, Brian. It's even if you were to have lost your life on that train, your projects would still live on. That's what's kind of fascinating for me, at least, is the idea that if you're involved in a group project, theoretically, your surviving group members would still have to complete that project at some point for a class, unless it affects them and their GPA and their incompletes. But more than that, if you have sort of larger, more I guess, long-term projects, like trying to, again, cultivate a kind of writing ability that allows you to produce a work of art or a work of literature or a play or something like that. And then you do produce that work, and then you die. The work lives on, but also the project of coming to value writing and the project of inspiring others to want to write through writing your own works. In a weird way, there are others there to pick up the mantle for you.
Yeah, we were just kind of talking about that in, like, towards the beginning of this podcast, where
Was that a low-key diss? Guys, I'm sorry I was late. No, I'm joking.
Yes, it was.
I mentioned how, I forgot who said this, but someone believes that you die twice. The first time you die is when you literally die, and the second time you die is when everybody forgets about you.
Wow, that's pretty heavy.
So like artists and historians and big time celebrities, like even though they're like 6 feet underground, they're still alive. They're
Alive in our memories or alive in our knowledge.
Yeah.
That's what the Day of the Dead is all about, actually.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's a good point.
It's about celebrating life. It's about celebrating how impactful these people were to your lives, and even though they're dead, you shouldn't be sad about it, but be grateful for the role they played in your life.
Yeah, it's reminiscent of what I was speaking on in class today. This idea that, if you read Beauvoir's The Coming of Age in that chapter on time and history, it seems like, you die when somebody else dies, you're grieving your own death because that person takes with them the way they saw you, their perspective of you, their understanding of you, their relationship to you that maybe definitely is unique and unlike anything else. So you're missing the person, but you're also missing what the person saw in you. And it's like nobody else sees me the way this person did. And it's almost like, therefore, I die a little bit. I think there is something personal in that same sort of way. For the record, Heidegger will argue, being in time, that you die every time you make a decision. You kill the trajectory of your life that would have happened if you made a different decision. So it's like you die 1,000 deaths a day.
So there's even the Shakespearean quote where he said, "Cowards die many times before their deaths. Brave men only die but once."
That's a great quote.
Yeah, no, I love Shakespeare. That's why you love him.
That's awesome.
He actually influences some of my writing styles.
Nice.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So I actually had a question to ask you in class, but I wasn't able to ask it, but I think it's relevant here.
Hang on, Jack. You talking to us? Oh, never mind. I thought he was yelling at you to get on the mic more. I'm sorry. No, please pose the question.
So, a lot of nihilists such as Nietzsche or like some hardcore existentialists like Sartre.
Actually, yeah, Brian, I'm sorry. Can you eat that mic?
What?
Eat the mic? Yeah, there you go, like that. Like it means put your face close to the mic. Yeah, like that.
You need to stop saying that to people because no one knows what he means whenever he
It'll
says
catch on.
Everyone knows what he means.
It's a
I
term.
never knew what he meant.
I did.
Until
Eat
he
that
broke
mic.
it down to me.
But yeah,
He's just like,
nihilists such
take
as
a bite.
Nietzsche, hardcore existentialists like Sartre and Camus, even though they all kind of agree on the same concept that life is meaningless, they all condone suicide in some way, shape, or form. So, like, if life is truly meaningless, then why does it matter if you decide to, end your life on your own terms rather than on someone else's terms?
Okay, that's
well,
an
we had
interesting
a topic about this.
I know we talked about suicide a couple of weeks back, but I think it's relevant in this discussion.
No, it absolutely is.
I thought we came to I thought the conclusion was come across that more or less it's for selfish reasons that like you die a little bit when someone else dies. So like if life is truly meaningless and hence there being no objective meaning to life, then you do have the right to take away your own life, but if you're taking away your own life, it's for selfish reasons, just as it's selfish for someone to tell you not to take your own life.
Yeah. No, just for the record, we don't condone or encourage suicide in any way, shape, or
at all.
form.
Speak for yourself.
If you feel like you're in a dark time, talk to someone. People care about you.
Yeah.
But back to this discussion. So I see what you're saying, right? But I kind of want to take a look at a nihilistic viewpoint of suicide. And I don't fully understand it, so that's why I asked Professor Mancy to, kind of give his take on it.
Ask Uche instead.
I'll defer you to my professor over here, Uche. I suppose, it's something, again, it's very complicated, as you might imagine it would be. But from that nihilist perspective, well, actually, let me pause and say, did you guys bring up the distinction between passive
and passive
yeah.
We did not.
No, we haven't yet.
Oh, okay. Well,
You were
maybe...
getting
You
there.
want to interject that in now?
Well, you know what I'll do? I'll still respond to Brian, and then maybe we can kind of work it out from there.
All right.
It seems as though, from a nihilistic perspective, again, life is inherently meaningless, and that seems to be a truth of nihilism. The suicide comes in from an existentialist point of view as an example of bad faith, which is a Sartrean term, which means that you're denying your very humanity. These existentialists believe that what defines a human being more than anything else, again, a Dasein, to use that technical term, is that human beings create meaning for themselves. They create significance in the world. That's what a human being does. That's how a human being bees. That's how it is. And so to look around and see nothing meaningful, and then as a result decide that that's justification for taking your own life because nothing matters, there's no greater crime against existentialism than to do that, because it's the ultimate, to put it in Sartrean terms, it's you become an in itself.
Yeah, because I know Camus says that if you kill yourself, you're basically letting the absurdity of life win, huh?
Yeah.
Rather than, embracing the absurdity.
Precisely.
Yes. I know Sartre says that it's in bad faith. Although I don't know, because when I first started reading Sartre early in the semester, right, I can see why, from a Sartrean perspective, suicide is irresponsible, but I can also see how it could also be responsible, because it's like one of the most biggest decisions anybody could ever make,
Exactly.
ever. And if you are fully aware of why you're doing it and ending it on your own terms, it could be deemed responsible and irresponsible. Wait, it's Schrodinger's cat. Wait, Sartre's noose. Can we call it that, Sartre's noose?
Sure. Hashtag Sartre's news.
Beautiful.
Yes.
And it's even
Not
funnier.
trending on Twitter.
The Greek word for intellect is nous, and it's pronounced nous.
Wow.
So Sartre's nous, that's a pun.
Hey.
Nice.
No, but passive nihilism and active nihilism.
Yeah.
So if I had to take a crack at what that means, like passive nihilism, I would assume it's like life is meaningless, but whatever. Whereas active nihilist, you're like, no, don't enjoy that because it's gonna not matter to you in like 5 years anyways.
Well, I'll explain it, because basically there's a really good YouTube channel, and that was pretty close, honestly. But there's a pretty good YouTube channel called Academy of Ideas, I think. And
Cat.
Yeah. Leave, please.
Schrodinger's cat.
But yeah, I'll get you in the camera. But there's a
If
pretty
I don't
good,
get camera time, there's no point in me being here.
there's a pretty good YouTube channel called Academy of Ideas, and they talk about a lot about. That's how I heard about Camus. I listened to a lot of their videos about Nietzsche, and one of them was called Nietzsche, Active versus Passive Nihilism. So Nietzsche's end goal in a person, his ideal goal in a person, is to become an Übermensch, a person who rejects or does not simply take another person's values and follows another person. Nietzsche does not want people to be disciples, but he wants people to be creators of their own values. And basically, he has a distinction between active nihilism and passive nihilism. Nietzsche sees nihilism as a transitional stage where a person realizes that the life has no inherent meaning to be found in it, and they go through nihilism, and after they overcome nihilism, they become an Übermensch. So Nietzsche has a distinction because he believes that not many people will be able to achieve the status of Übermensch. And he says that there are two types. Passive is where a person goes through nihilism and they see nihilism as the end goal. That is the stopping point. So they realize that life has no meaning, but they stop there. They don't search for meaning. They don't attempt to create their own meaning. They see that it has no meaning, and that is the end goal for them. And he sees that a lot of these people will take on a nihilistic lifestyle and will ultimately end up committing suicide or just withering throughout their lives.
Okay, so basically a 14-year-old boy in middle school. Huh?
Yeah.
They realize that life is meaningless and they do absolutely nothing with that knowledge. They're just like, nothing matters. I'm going to go play Call of Duty and scream out racial slurs.
And they'll just that's
For middle school?
No, it's true. It's very true. It's terrifying.
It's actually younger than that. I say
okay, so active nihilism. So it would be like realizing that life has no meaning, but trying to do something about it.
Trying to place meaning. Being the autonomous source of reason for your life.
Yeah.
Right, so
giving your life reason instead of just accepting that there is no reason and that being the end point. Right. He calls an active nihilist a person who attempts to give the life meaning, give their own life meaning.
Wait, so Wait, so Nietzsche came first and then Camus came second, right?
Yes.
Okay, so then how they both have similar ideas. So how is it that Nietzsche always gets painted as a bad guy, saying, "Oh, he's just saying that life is crappy and
Because
you shouldn't
he
even
killed God.
bother"?
Because I think it's a lot of his shock value quotes. I think the
Yeah.
God is dead, and I think that there was one. I saw a video on him. I think that he was once like propagandized into.
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
into
The,
Nazi-
the
yeah.
Nazis use his philosophy to justify their actions, and people associate him with Nazism.
Yeah.
When really Heidegger was the Nazi, not Nietzsche. Did
Yeah.
Nietzsche actually? Did Nietzsche? Wait, no, wait. Nietzsche was dead before Nazism happened.
He was insane and then dead.
Yeah, then he died. Oh well.
Yeah, I don't think Nietzsche. I think a lot of Nietzsche's bad reputation, because like I said earlier, when I was in a club meeting, I was hearing someone say false but insulting things about Nietzsche, and I knew that they were false, but I could see how he got the misconception from a lot of the things that he says, where he says God is dead. If you see someone saying God is dead, but you don't read into their philosophy, you can understand how they look as a negative person.
No, like yeah,
And was that the philosophy club? That,
No, it wasn't the philosophy
No.
club.
oh,
that-
what
that-
other club?
It was Core or Focus, one of the two.
Ah,
No,
wow.
it actually
Oh, I
reminds
can
I
see
didn't
why
really
he
think.
was
I didn't really
mad.
think you'd shout him out.
No,
like
it
that.
actually reminds me of a time I
How
was
dare you.
so before philosophy class started, I would like write a philosophical quote on the board, right? And I wrote, "God is dead and we have killed him,"
Yeah.
quoting Nietzsche. But everybody just took what they saw at face value. Like, Brian, you cannot say that about religion. I'm like, no, I'm not saying that
There
about
is no
religion.
religion.
Nietzsche is saying that about religion. Although I very much agree with the whole God is not dead concept. I mean, God is dead concept. It has nothing to do with, saying that religion is bad, but rather saying that reasoning and science have basically,
Religion.
more or less made religion less special, because before science, religion just kind of filled in all the gaps. Ooh, we're all special. God has a special plan for all of us. We were created into his image. And then science came along. It's like, no, we have this thing called biology, genetics, and all that stuff. So it kind of took like all the special meaning out of religion. So that's what he meant by God is dead and we have killed him. Not saying that, religion is, just full of it.
Yeah, and I think that's a good way to put it. Yeah, and Uche, I loved how you summarized those two as well. I mean, Nietzsche, just to be fair, Nietzsche was also very skeptical of science too. He saw science as almost becoming a little too clinical, a little too sterile.
A little too methodical.
Yeah, a little too reductive, I think. Yeah. So, and of course, there are times when science seems to have replaced religion in terms of telling us what is real.
Scientology.
Well, not that's okay. I don't know about that. But
It's a cult.
but look, I want to get back to this idea of passive versus active nihilism. It seems like the active nihilist looks at nihilism as an opportunity, as a liberating phenomena, where you realize, okay, I'm not necessarily beholden to these values that I had no part in creating. That in fact, I come to see that values, and again, this is the existentialist perspective by and large, that these values are not arbitrary but man-made, created, or invented. They're not discovered necessarily. And for that very reason, you can begin to recognize yourself as an artist who creates values and worlds of meaning and significance over and against the already laid out canvas of prescribed, pre-established values and meanings. So I want to make sure that we see the dynamism at play here. It's not as though because all values are inherent. Hey, it's not as though because all values are not an inherent part of the world, that for that very reason we should no longer try to find them. I mean, that's where the pitfall comes. That's where you become a bit too passive, is when, sadly but surely you think to yourself, well, if the world is inherently meaningless, that's a justification for me to not give it any significance. When it's the opposite. Ideally, is that you see, wow, now I can imbue the world with meaning and significance from my perspective and my individual vantage point. Also knowing that, I need to take responsibility for those who don't see it my way, even while I'm trying to stay in my lane. And beyond that, I have to therefore take accountability for the fact that I can also change my values whenever I please as well. This idea of autonomy it's a relative autonomy. You're autonomous relative to your social and cultural context.
And something else that really was the argument really centered itself around during our discussion yesterday was the idea that nihilism, or a nihilistic mindset, even an Ubermensch mindset, could be dangerous or sometimes detrimental to a community. Where if a person sees himself, a person lays out his own values, but these values do not agree with what the community has said, then that person could be a criminal. They could be dangerous for the people around them. That was what a lot of the discussion was about yesterday. And someone summed it up pretty greatly. It's like, imagine you're on a
Thank
street. No problem. Imagine you're on a street and everyone wants to drive in their own direction. Some people say, I don't want to stop at red lights anymore. Some people say, I don't want to go at green lights anymore. I don't want to drive this way. I don't want to drive that way. It could be very chaotic if a community is based around nihilism. And that's something I would want to hear your everyone's thoughts on that, because that's something that was very present in the discussion yesterday.
Yeah.
Well, as you know, a lot of my philosophy is centered around, individualism, right? I know I love to criticize Ayn Rand. I think her ideas are very, very selfish if you ask me. But for the most part, a lot of my philosophy is about the individual. And here's the way I see it. I feel like a community full of Ubermensch could possibly be detrimental, especially if they don't all agree with each other. But a community with maybe like a small handful of Ubermensch, or maybe just one or two Ubermensch, I feel like society could greatly benefit from that.
Yeah.
If society allows it to benefit
A
them.
nice tight-knit community of Ubermenches with blonde hair and blue eyes. Yeah, I see where you're going with this, Brian.
No, like a suburban neighborhood, Like they have their own
phones are lighting
The
up.
phones are lighting up, folks.
Yes, like a little school, like a little school, and there's like a little church, and then they have like get-togethers and block parties on 4th of July. No, but in all seriousness though, okay.
Yeah.
I feel like society could benefit from a few Ubermensch, but the problem is not a lot of society does not want to accept these Ubermensch, especially if they're just completely out of the norm and state a lot of unpopular opinions. Because I feel like, could I call Ubermensch like nihilistic heroes? I feel like that's what they sound like to me,
Sure.
That's interesting.
I mean, they're called the Superman. That's how it's translated, I'm
Yes.
pretty sure.
But why not an existentialist hero?
An existential
Why
hero.
nihilistic hero?
Why nihilistic hero? I don't know. That's a good point. I gotta think about that. I can't,
No, sure, yeah. I mean, I like. First of all, I love the phrase nihilistic hero. It almost sounds like anti-hero, but as you're pointing out, it's not necessarily negative. I wonder about this though, Brian, and I think Nietzsche goes down this road. Whether or not his predecessor, or rather his progeny, intellectually speaking, take him up on this is another question. But ideally, again, in a world beyond good and evil, which is the title of one of his works, where you get to thinking about the natural phenomenon above and beyond long established human interpretations and sort of, I guess, typically Judeo-Christian values of what is right and wrong and good and evil and holy and sinful. You get to a point where you begin to cease expecting to be judged by others on those kinds of terms. And so I guess what I'm getting at here is that disagreement might not actually come about in such a way that causes problems. I'll put it to you this way. There's still going to be things like jealousy and envy and stuff like that among the Ubermensch, but it's a kind of a good thing. It's like, I'm jealous of you because I admire this quality in you so much, and I want that in myself. And even when there are certain forms of again, I guess we'll call it disagreement. I don't want to call it conflict. If there are different forms of disagreement that arise, the Ubermensch are the kind of people who are, they're strong enough to reevaluate their values. They're the kind of people who aren't going to be derailed or sidetracked by certain things. They're going to be open-minded. They're going to be creative almost inherently, which is, I guess, Nietzsche and Heidegger's point. We are creative inherently. We're all artists, but we create meaning and significance, and we do it naturally. What's unnatural is having somebody else tell you what is valuable, and then you sort of accepting it without thinking about it deeply. And nihilism, passive nihilism, is just that.
Yeah.
In its
Disciples.
infancy. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Did you say something, Anthony?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Anthony.
I said isn't that called brainwashing?
It would be called brainwashing.
Maybe, who knows?
Or submitting.
No, but
Subliminal messages. Go on.
no, but what I
You
see
could definitely use a shower.
I see
Hello.
where Nietzsche's getting at, and
Wash.
I actually agree with a lot of things that you just mentioned. Well, I know not Mancy mentioned, but Nietzsche through Mancy.
Yeah, thank you for
mentioned-
clarifying that, by the way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I agree with a lot of those sentiments. Like I personally, find myself, like I like to think I'm open-minded. I like to think that I don't know if I actually am. That's up to interpretation, and I'm somehow responsible for
Nope.
that.
I'm joking.
Yeah.
Brian, you're very open-minded.
Yeah, Sergeant Heidegger. Hey.
No, but no. Yeah. I'm sorry. I lost my train of thought.
No problem.
No, this idea of you like to think you're open-minded because you're very individualistic in your understanding of things.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. No, but I think I think a way Ubermensch can become detrimental to society, not necessarily society full of Ubermensch, but let's say society full of people who have neither reached the nihilistic phase or are just all stuck in passive nihilism. I feel like a way they could become detrimental to society, right? Think of it like this: they're all living in the matrix, right? And the Ubermensch is the one who took the red pill and is now out of the matrix.
Yeah.
And if someone who took the red pill is going around saying you're living with a bunch of lies, you could take full control of your life or whatnot, it might be shocking for some people, and maybe they don't want to accept the fact that they can do more with their life and just kind of be stuck where they're more comfortable at, right?
That's laziness.
Yeah, a way they can attack the Ubermensch is kind of like ostracize him. Like, ooh, you're not making you're saying things that go against the norm. You're acting ways that are against the norm, so we're going to ostracize you, undermine you, and basically outcast you from society for being an Ubermensch, basically.
You're a deviant at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what it is. So Nietzsche. It's not as though we go from here to the Ubermensch. Nietzsche does believe it takes hundreds of years, and that perhaps right now we are like a bridge to the Ubermensch. And so, because the transition would be very rough, but even the bridges to the Ubermensch, like the prophets to the Ubermensch, they are going to be outcasts. I think you're right, because they're going to be deviants compared to the norm.
Yeah. And wait, would the road to becoming an Ubermensch be basically the rite of passage?
Wow, that's a great thesis.
If only I had known about this concept before I started writing my essay. So I'm taking a Loss of Innocence course with Mancy and Mary Wood.
I profess it, yeah.
Yes, and we had to write an essay on is a loss of innocence necessary to become to basically grow as a person?
Okay.
And I'm like, maybe I could write about that.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting idea to explore.
Yes.
I mean, my initial response is yes, but it's the kind of loss of innocence where you come of age. Yeah, maybe that's everything lynches together then. Is that if you take this Nietzschean understanding of becoming your own sort of existentialist hero in his way, that the loss of innocence is this understanding of perhaps a nihilistic world, and then the coming of age is making it your own and being creative. Wow, that's fascinating. Quick shout out, I'm giving a public lecture tomorrow from 11 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. in Lago Vista Gallery. That is the art gallery in the library. Second to last, bottom floor. I don't know what it is. But I'll be there speaking on a loss of innocence, coming of age in contemporary society.
Nice.
So check it out.
Nice. When you become an Ubermensch, you grow like a big mustache like Nietzsche.
Good.
And like you just as soon as you become an Ubermensch, like you wake up the next morning and boom.
Even if
there
you're
it
a
is.
woman.
Yeah, even if you're a woman, like even if you've
Even if
never
you're a
grown
baby.
facial hair in your life, the mustache just pops out.
It would take me 9 million years to grow a mustache like that.
That's because you haven't become an Ubermensch yet.
I guess you're right.
Yeah, become an Ubermensch and then we'll talk.
Nice.
Yes. All right.
We're actually going to have to cut off early today at 3 sharp.
Is that right?
Uh-huh.
I actually have a hard out at 3. I gotta
Okay.
go participate in a professional development workshop, talking to new honors faculty fellows and sharing my experiences. Starts at 3:05.
That sounds beautiful, man.
Thank you.
I mean, Uchi sounds beautiful.
Thank you.
But if we can give out the opposite of introductions. I don't know what word that would be.
And
That's called the
introductions.
outro. It's
And
called
outro.
Outroductions.
Okay.
Yeah, we could give out outroductions. If you have any clubs or anything, any announcements for your clubs, any special sign-offs that you would like to give, any slogans, now is the time. We can start from the far left corner again.
Wow, always picking on me, your boy, Willard Oliver Smith.
Yes. So, the debate club is currently working on a collaboration with the LGBT club for a possible debate in January.
Oh, that's awesome.
Where we would be debating about anything that's related to gay rights, transgender rights, or whatnot. The only problem that might arise, though, is that the LGBT club will obviously be debating on their behalf, and someone from the debate club is going to have to play devil's advocate. And
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, but isn't that the point of it? Is to test your
of course, it's the
rhetorical
point of
skills?
it. But like, my concern is if the public's going to understand that.
Oh,
Like,
I would hope they would.
no, I hope they do.
Yeah.
Like, I hope. Like, I have to give this giant disclaimer. Like, just for the record, I'm not actually homophobic, transphobic, or anything like that. I'm just acting, like convincingly acting.
Yeah. I think that'll be made clear.
Yeah.
I look forward to that. That sounds really
you
good.
could go with like no one deserves any rights kind of view.
No. What the topic? The
We'll
topic.
back
I'm
it,
the topic. I'm leaning.
Nazism.
We discussed this before, the LGBT club and a topic that I'm leaning more towards is if. Like let's say bakeries or photography studios are obligated to provide their services to homosexual marriages.
I got you.
Yeah. Because I'm not sure if y'all are familiar with this, but there was a case where a bakery would not serve a cake to a gay wedding, right? And they got sued. I don't actually know what ultimately happened to them, but it stirred up a bunch of controversy and a bunch of discussions.
Was that a pun because they're bakers and you stir the batter?
Oh God!
Anyways, who's next?
Ladies and gentlemen,
Next is Professor Manzi.
Okay, Professor Manzi. I'm a new person now, but it was nice. The Philosophy Club has had a nice, busy November.
Absolutely.
I think that we've came through strong with all of our events. And look into our club next semester. We'll be pushing through for one more semester. And many after
I was gonna say what?
Keep it
Was that like your
it's a season.
resignation?
It's the final season, guys.
It's the final season.
The Earth is going to crash with another planet, guys.
Our videos have fallen down to only 15 views a month. That means it's the final season. No, I think
ratings are low.
look, I will say this, man. The Philosophy Club has been on fire this month, and I had very little to do with it. So I give all the props in the world to the officers and the committed members, the core members, who may not be officers, but they're certainly a big part of the club. So yeah, shout outs to everybody. From Fresh Check Week, or Fresh Check Day. See, that's how little.
There you
From
go.
Fresh Check Day to last night's movie screening of Melancholia, which was I haven't seen that movie in years. I just forgot how great it is. And the discussion afterwards, which I mean, there was a small group of us. We talked like an hour. It was pretty spectacular. And again, to have these meetings and people still showing up despite how busy it is, it's pretty spectacular. If you're interested in serving as an officer, because we've got 3/5 of the executive board leaving, get at Uche.
3 spots open.
That was kind of a pun. I wasn't even going to bring it up, but yeah.
Oh. Do you think Amazon will send me money for wearing this hoodie?
Dude, you're sponsored. Come on.
Okay.
Anyways, but yeah, I did want to say that too. The last night was the launching of the Philosophy Club's Philosophy and Film series, which will be happening monthly, starting last night and then picking up again in the spring semester.
Wait.
So if you have movie suggestions,
I got one.
Yeah, sure.
Okay,
What's
the
up?
entire first season of BoJack Horseman.
That's not a movie.
No,
That might be expensive to get the rights to that.
No, you're
I'm
right.
not even joking.
No, but BoJack Horseman had they explore a lot of existential topics.
Yeah, I love that show.
Yes.
Wow, you do.
The show will make you want to
love
kill
that show.
yourself, but it's worth it.
I don't know about that.
Okay,
I
well,
retract my statement of support for that show.
okay, well, just remember that you are listening to KDX Web Radio, broadcast live from Richland College in Dallas, Texas. We are the voice of Richland College. Views expressed on this show are our own unless otherwise stated and do not reflect the opinion of KDUX Web Radio, Richland College, or the DCCD dot quotation mark. All right, guys.
Let's hear that.
Follow
Tom.
us on Twitter,
Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, etc., etc.
Google Plus.
What's your sign off?
MySpace.
Think a little.